some of the most enigmatic remains of Bronze Age European culture are large golden cones or hats, decorated with rings of what appear to be solar emblems. Who made these hats? What were they for? And what did they represent? In the late Bronze Age of Central Europe, the Urnfield culture was producing marvelous works of bronze and gold still admired today. Plate armor, jewelry, swords, bowls, all demonstrating a common artistic style and beliefs. Important among these depictions was a reverence for the sun. Solar symbols are featured on many of the Urnfield artifacts, including those associated with the dead. The Urnfield culture follows on the tumulus culture, the difference being that the burial style of the dead changed during this period. People moved away from being buried in large tumuli and moved towards being cremated and having their ashes placed in urns, and then buried in flat graves. However, it's important to note that even during this time and well into the Urnfield culture, some people remained buried also in tumulus. Someone could be cremated and have their ashes placed into an urn, and then also be buried in a tumulus. Important among all the strange and wonderful things produced by this culture are what are now referred to as simply the gold hats. These hats were elaborately constructed of thin gold sheets. These sheets were hammered from a single piece of gold to be as flat as 0.6 millimeters on average, and these would be placed over an organic inner lining. 4 of them have been discovered in modern-day Germany and France, all decorated with patterns of concentric circles or wheels. But aside from these examples, there are parallel examples from the exact same time period found in Ireland and Spain. Although not as conical as the ones found in Germany and France, they nonetheless contain the same pattern design, and one can assume that they are influenced by exactly the same culture. Originally identified as bowls, they are now correctly identified as being hats. The Irish example has been lost, but drawings of it that remain show that it was almost identical in design and style to those found in Spain. These hats potentially show a continuity in culture and religious belief in the late Bronze Age, stretching from Central Europe to Ireland and Spain. These are all areas that would later be identified as speaking a Celtic language and having similar beliefs. Primary among those are the elite priestly caste known as the Druids. A careful analysis of the best surviving examples of these hats, the Berlin hat, reveals that the concentric circles or wheels and other symbols are very likely representative of the Metonic cycle, that is, the 19-year cycle of the moon, and the hats record a lunar solar calendar. This demonstrates a sophisticated knowledge of the cycles of the sun and moon over long periods of time, and could only be the result of generations of detailed celestial observation and recording. It also demonstrates continuity with earlier artifacts such as the Nebra sky disk and the Trundholm sun chariot. These hats would likely have been worn or used by an elite priestly caste, if not a priest king, and the knowledge possessed by this elite was evidently being passed down through many generations. In the following Iron Age, in the very same regions these hats were found, we know that Druids formed just such an elite priestly caste, that they studied philosophy and the stars and possessed arcane knowledge. We also know that the Gaulish Druids used a very advanced calendrical system, more advanced even than the Roman system at the same time. A calendar that was also lunisolar and divided the year into two halves, just as the Irish and Welsh tradition does. Were the Druids the inheritors or successors, or the direct continuation of these Bronze Age priests with their golden hats? These Bronze Age hats are only one such example of a strong following of a solar cult in Bronze Age Europe, but one which doesn't seem particularly representative of later mythologies from the Iron Age, from the Romans, or the Germanic peoples. These hats are just one further example that people during the European Bronze Age were sophisticated, artistic, and knowledgeable. They lived in a hierarchical society with an established elite that could afford to produce such amazing works of art and culture, who possessed great knowledge, and who demonstrated their status through the use of such symbols of power. And their astrological knowledge may have even rivaled that of the Far East during the same period. The Berlin hat was produced from a single sheet of gold, hammered out to a thickness, as already stated, of approximately 0.6 millimeters. It had to be heated to at least 750 degrees, but not more than 960 degrees, which at that temperature would melt the gold. And this shows a strict heat control, advanced production techniques, using an oven and bellows in order to carefully manipulate the temperature. This is a high degree of technological prowess achieved by the artisans of the Urnfield culture. And it's very likely that in this period that the culture and language that produced these hats spread through Western Europe, reaching Ireland and the Iberian Peninsula. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, share, and consider checking out our Patreon page to support us. I'd like to thank all my Patreon subscribers, and as always, stand tall.